Flinch mechanics have been a hot topic of debate as of late. There have been a lot of arguments on both sides. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly how Flinch works, the implications it has on Planetside 2, and finally explain why it has to change. Flinch serves as a feedback mechanism. It gives the player a response when their character is taking damage. This essentially helps you feel the pain that your character does, immersing you more into the game and allowing you to move your character with more awareness. Sounds great! Now let's talk about how it actually plays out. In practice, flinch mechanisms have three major impacts on the game. It makes gunplay far less competitive, it penalizes teamwork and coordination, and finally, it makes new conglomerate weapons the worst of the three empires. Let's start by talking about the competitiveness of gunplay. Gunplay in Planetside 2 is all about something called flinch locking. This means triggering an enemy's flinch and then keeping him flinched until he's dead, so that he can never return fire. Gunplay is essentially flinch or be flinched. I often hear the argument, flinch rewards the player who shoots first, which is thus rewarding flanking. Other shooters have mechanics which reward the first shooter, such as tagging in Counter-Strike. Tagging makes the player stop when they receive fire. However, while tagged, it is possible to return fire. What makes the gunplay so much less competitive is the randomness of flinch. It could throw your aim off a minor amount or an extreme amount. This means that the initial flinch could be guaranteed death, or your return fire might flinch the enemy and cause you to win. Randomness takes away from competitiveness. By leaving things to chance, you're eliminating room for the player's skills to make a difference. Flinching has a detrimental effect on team play. It punishes players who try to provide cover for their teammates. Flinching gives a huge bonus to the attacker when you consider the interaction between latency and flinch. Latency is often the biggest factor when you're determining who gets the first shot. The person with the higher latency almost always gets it. Latency can add 100, 200, or even more milliseconds of delay. Add this on top of the average human reaction time of 200 milliseconds. This means that when someone strafes around a corner, they almost always get the first shot. Because of this, defense is penalized. If you have your gun up covering a door, you'll often lose to somebody entering that door, since he will have the opportunity to flinch you first. This makes it less worth your time to protect and cover teammates. The result is more chaotic combat as you're incentivized to disregard your team and go on the attack. Flinching makes new conglomerate weapons the worst of the three factions. This is because flinching causes rate of fire to be the predominant stat in weapons. Higher rate of fire weapons are outright better weapons. All low rate of fire weapons in the game suffer substantially from flinch. It's often the case that even in spite of getting the first shot, somebody can turn and return fire and then win because their weapon has a higher rate of fire, and thus is triggering flinch more often. This has made a huge amount of weapons in the game uncompetitive. While every empire's weapons are suffering from this, it's immediately apparent that one empire is suffering more. In some cases they have the option to upgrade to reach the competitiveness of the other two factions, but in the case of heavy assault, as you can see, there's no LMG with over 700 RPM. One faction is being unfairly held back by this mechanic. Now, I realize that I'm making a few bold claims about weapon balance, but these are all conclusions that I've come to after spending quite a lot of time with quite a lot of different rate of fire weapons. Other players on the leaderboard will tell you the exact same things. It's well and good that flinching adds another form of feedback to the player. I actually feel that in many cases PS2 lacks feedback and needs to figure out more ways to provide visual and audio cues. But flinching and screen shake in their current implementation are causing a myriad of problems. If you watch closely, you'll see that flinching shifts the player's point of view. This helps the player figure out where exactly he's taking damage from. If possible, I'd like to see this effect without the violent shaking of the entire screen. I hope that it's possible to tune flinch so that it provides the same feedback but without the disorientation.